What's up, Madridistas? This is Kiyan Sobhani. It is Tuesday, December 26th, pretty early in the morning here. And I wanted to wish you all the happiest and safest of holidays imaginable. I hope wherever you guys are, you're surrounded by lots of love and lots of good food. We miss you guys. We love you guys. And I wish you guys the best. Thank you guys for listening to the show. You guys are awesome. With that being said, I'm just itching to record more podcasts. So we're getting back to the regular schedule kind of this week. Later today, Lucas and I will be doing a weekly mailbag. I think the plan is that on Thursday, Matt and I will finish the Beckham docu-series podcast. So we've done episode 1 and 2. 3 and 4 will be coming up on Thursday. That's the plan. We'll see if we can swing that. And then I'm doing my annual New Year's mailbag solo session, which I started last year. This will be the second edition. I'm going to just take questions from everyone and answer them at my own pace. And last year was a lot of fun. You guys can ask me anything you want. It can be literally about anything, and I will try my best to answer it. And that'll be up on December 30th or 31st. I'll put out a call for questions around the 29th. Today's clip, for those of you guys who are not members, is taken from last week's mailbag. So Lucas was away. Jose filled in, helped me answer questions from members. And the 2 questions I'm including for free this week, back to back, in this clip, is one, is Carlo Ancelotti the best coach in the world at optimizing the output of his players? And the second question is a member asking us to create basically a hypothetical 3-team tournament which consists of A, Real Madrid's Spanish all-time 11, B, Real Madrid's European all-time 11 without the Spanish players, and C, Real Madrid's all-time South American 11. So Jose and I just kind of talk ourselves through that, and we hope you enjoy it. We want to hear from you guys in the comments. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Who would you take in this hypothetical 3-team tournament? We'd love to hear your take. The full episode, much longer, of course. We discuss our favorite squad players ever. We discuss Negreira case stuff. We discuss Barcelona's legacy, particularly through the Negreira case stuff. We discuss Super League stuff, a lot of Super League discussion. By the way, we did a ton of Super League coverage. So the night of the Super League announcement, or the court ruling plus the new presentation, that also fell on the day of Real Madrid's last game. So we did a 3-hour live call, and we discussed the post-game show against Alaves, and we combined it with the Super League, and we took questions live on the call. And then the next day, Jose and I talked about it again. So if you want access to that, become a member over on patreon.com/Managing Madrid. And if you can't access Patreon because of the country you live in, you can simply click on the YouTube memberships tab and sign up that way. All right, before I lose my voice for good, I need to get some coffee. It's too early here. I'm going to get to today's clip and enjoy it. Happy holidays again. Much love to you all, and here we go. Ranta says, a couple coaching questions in this one. Mailbag. So Ranta says, how important is the role of the coach when it comes to developing the best talents in the world? Do you think it would be beneficial for the younger players' development to have a more tactically advanced coach for a few seasons, or is the superior experience of Don Carlo enough to maximize their potential? Like, do the players get better individually over the long haul playing for a coach like Tuchel or maybe Xabi? Or will the likes of Tchouaméni and Camavinga become greater no matter the coach by just playing regularly for the biggest club in the world?
That's a tough one. I'm going to give kind of the boring first answer in that it always depends. At least for me, it's hard to generalize because it always depends depends on what the players need at a specific moment in time. Generally, Sometimes the players need more structure. Sometimes the players need more freedom. To give an example, Zidane, before Angelotti came back for the second time, he was a more structured coach. And that was kind of restraining the freedom of Rodrigo and Vinicius. Then Ancelotti came in, and what they need, and we saw that what they needed was that extra freedom. So in that case, what they needed for their development was Ancelotti. Then I could agree to a degree that, say, someone like Camavinga, because the thing with Ancelotti is that he's not like, I see it as there are kind of roughly two styles of coaches in developing this. Like, there are coaches who like just want to they take the players' strengths as they are and then try to adapt their system towards those strengths, which is what Ancelotti does. And then there's, say, your Guardiolas, Klopp, etc., who have a system and they want to adapt the players and increase their strengths or change their strengths to fit that system. So, and they do that maybe by constraining the players in certain roles and making them get better at certain things. So maybe, for example, Camavinga would have can improve, say, certain aspects of his game more quickly if Pep gives him a more defined role. While with Ancelotti, it's going to take him a couple of years to figure out what his role is. To give an example, although again, a guy like Camavinga is probably the kind of player who would do well under anyone and under any circumstances. So it varies a lot for me. Like, I generally think, like, say, if a more structured coach comes in, there are some players who can benefit from it more. Like, I think at this point, Camavinga could benefit a bit from a more structured coach. But there are also other players like maybe Rodrigo who maybe don't benefit from a more structured approach. So it really depends on the players.
Would you say that the more defensive you are as a player, like the further back you are, you benefit more from a more structured coach? Whereas if you're an attacking player, it might just benefit you more to play under Carlo. Because I don't know if that's a Carlo thing, or a Real Madrid thing. Because, as Cannavaro once famously said, you took him out of an Italian defense and you airdropped him in Real Madrid chaos, and he just wasn't the same guy anymore. And it was like, like at Real Madrid, no longer are you defending the same kind of space. You're defending like acres of space behind you. Whereas in Italy, you didn't have to do that. So all of a sudden, you have to just defend without a structure. And I wonder if it's also contextual in that sense. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I would agree with, like, actually, the point on defense is very good because defense tends to be the aspect that benefits the most from structure. Like, attack you can do a bit more freedom in attack, but freedom in defense will normally lead to a mess in defense. So it is true that, and that's actually the main reason teams have gone towards more positional play, more structure. It's not so much for the stuff they do with the ball, but the stuff they do with defending without the ball, because it's that structure, because it's that part of the game that needs a bit more structure. And even, like, for example, with Rudiger, we could see that, like, there was a drop-off last year in his performances because he went from, like, a very structured Tuchel system to Ancelotti, like, where there's a lot less structure. So there was a very clear drop-off there. He's adapting to the new system, but yeah, in the end, what works for player development, I just think some players at some point in their careers need more structure. Other players, and maybe later in their careers, what they need is more structure, but it really varies. And it's a very player by player thing. You need to look at the current squad as a whole and say, okay, these guys need more structure. These guys need more freedom, and just kind of look at the trade-offs.
Like Angelotti gets a lot of criticism for stifling the development of younger players. Whereas, like, the track record with him is actually that younger players perform well under him. So it's a different discussion. There's a difference between trusting or not trusting a young player, whereas the young players he does trust seem to excel. Like, if you look back, I mean, and sometimes the criticism is really not about, like, can this player thrive under Ancelotti? The criticism that comes in against him is, why isn't Ancelotti developing young players and playing them more? But the track record of, like, when they're on the field with the players he does trust, they do really well. I'm at a stage now where I feel like there might not be a better coach in football when it comes to having a player perform at his individual best. He seems to just get the science of nurturing a player and unleashing their freedom in a creative and confident way, and also sticking with those players he trusts through bad slumps like Rodrigo recently, and
Hmm.
entrusting them that they will figure it out and not giving up on them and sticking with that, and proven right that he was um in his confidence in Rodrigo. Was proven right because Rodrigo eventually got going, and it was a confidence that, it came back for him, and that in part is why Rodrigo ran over to Ancelotti when he scored one of his goals during his slump, and kept being vocal publicly that, like, thank you, Ancelotti, for trusting me throughout this. It just seems like his approach works. And in terms of like giving them guidance, first of all, like, I think we sometimes forget that Ancelotti himself was actually a very intelligent footballer when he played for Milan. He understands the way the game should be played. So he's not just a vibes man manager. Like, he understands football, right? So it's not completely structureless, but he also can give good advice to young players, like when he told Vinicius 1 to 2 touches, simplify your shooting when you get in front of goal. Obviously, that did wonders for him a couple years ago. And then he also has a lot of the tactical brains surrounding him too, with his coaching staff and what David brings to the table. So I think it's just him, and the combination of what he brings is really perfect for Real Madrid at this stage. And I feel like we'll kind of revisit this one because there's a Jack Grealish question at the end of the mailbag, but
Yeah.
he kind of like fits into this idea of like Jack Grealish has kind of turned into this robot under Pep. And what would he look like under somebody like Ancelotti, who is less rigid in his approach? It's an interesting thought exercise, right?
Yeah, and I think like I particularly agree that like with the sense in the sense that I do think Ancelotti is the best at optimizing players for attacking positions in like especially for offense. I really think like like I don't know if anyone how many coaches would have had both the smarts and the courage to put say Bellingham in the position that they did. I mean, it was still because of certain deficiencies in other parts of the squad, but like it takes courage to do those things. And it's like, yeah, he does have an eye for those things. And one thing I do like is that, well, he did have that comment on how like that what he doesn't like about younger coaches is that they tell the players too many things. And I do
Mm,
think Ancelotti has this thing where like which is very old school coaching where the coach, even if they know the answer, doesn't necessarily want to give it to the player. Like they want to let the player also figure out some things for themselves.
yeah.
And I see that, for example, like with say Camavinga, that maybe another coach that's more structured would go and tell you should play like this, and that. And the coach would say, well, this is a younger player. We have to give him like a very defined role so that he can. And I think Ancelotti is more like do like just gives less instructions in that regard, and it's more like do what you think it's best. So
Which I think is correct. I think it's the correct approach. Now, it doesn't mean it's applicable everywhere, because I think, for example, what De Zerbi does at Brighton. Okay, so I know that team has a high ceiling, but also it can go bad for them. But he can't go out and tell a team like Brighton to figure it out, because he doesn't have like a Luka Modric or Jude
yes,
Bellingham in his team. So I think contextually speaking, like, you do need
yes,
coaches in certain environments to definitely give instructions to the players, especially if you're a smaller team. And that's why I think Carlo works better at Real Madrid than he does at Everton. We discussed this last night too on
yeah,
the live call. And
agreed.
why De Zerbi might not work here, but might work at Brighton. I mean, we don't know until we see it, but you know, I think what Carlo is perfect for what Real Madrid are doing. Uh, all right, we're gonna move on. We'll come back to coaching stuff in a bit. Here's a fun one. Ignacio on YouTube says, I think I asked you this question on one of your Instagram AMAs, but I forgot. I think it'd be fun to ask again. Who would be in your all-time Real Madrid 11 in these three categories: all-time Spanish 11, all-time Europe 11 without Spain, and a South American 11. Who do you think would come out on top? You can add managers if you want. Hope you guys take a well-deserved holiday break. Hala Madrid. Happy holidays. Awesome. Thank you, Ignacio. So Jose and I, we discussed this a bit off air. Jose didn't see this question until like before we hit record. So he didn't have time to prepare for this one, but he does have a list of players that he can go through. I actually prepared 3 teams. So we kind of agreed. I'll list my teams, and Jose will tell me if I missed anyone.
Yeah.
Give his
like
opinion.
comment on some alternatives that I might think about. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll start with Spain. By the way, in the question of who wins. Okay, we'll discuss the who wins one after. It's pretty clear to me, but we can talk about it. The Spain 11. Casillas. I don't know why I said that way. Casillas. The back line is Hierro Ramos as your center backs, Camacho as your left back. It's either Chendo or Carvajal as your right back.
That's
Chendo
what I have too.
Yeah, I have Chendo a hair above Carvajal, but I think it's arguable, and it can be Carvajal. Xabi Alonso, Piri. So I'll just put it this way, because I have 4 locks from midfield and up. The 4 locks to me are Xabi Alonso, Piri, Paco Gento, and Raul.
Mm-hmm.
That leaves 4 positions for these 5 players in my opinion. Michel, Isco, Amancio, and Butragueño. Those 4 players, actually. So I was thinking about, like, I think you can argue, like, you don't need another forward because you have Raul there. Maybe you want to go with another creative midfielder or a winger like Isco, Amancio, and Michel. But I think Butragueño is the quote-unquote biggest player, and I'd love to see like a 4-4-2 with Raul and Butragueño up top. And those two can be interchangeable. One of them can play as a 9, one of them as a shadow striker. Both can do link-up stuff. Both can defend. I think it would actually work really well. We kind of saw it, but we didn't really, because Butragueño was really old and Raul was really young when they overlapped. We never got to see them together in their primes. So I'll go Raul and Butragueño up top. Xabi Alonso, Piri, double pivot, and then you get Paco Gento on one wing, and then I'll go with Michel on the other wing. So Isco and Amancio kind of lose out in this conversation, but I think, or at least honorable mentions. And then there's many, many great Spanish players, obviously, but just limiting into this.
Yeah, I mean, you've mentioned I was just drawing up a list of like the Spanish players, and that's basically everyone I had. Yeah, that's basically everyone I had. Okay. I mean, because like Santillana doesn't get ahead as a striker ahead of Butragueño and Raul. Right. I don't think so.
But honorable mention.
Yeah. Who else? I mean, for keeper, I guess Buyo or Casillas, or
it's got to be Casillas. But Buyo is probably number 2. Buyo and Zamora are the the 2 big names after that. But I also, I mean, we're talking about honorable mentions. Manuel Sanchez, obviously,
yes,
is one of the great defenders. And there's so many great midfielders as well. But for the sake of this conversation, I think that would be the strongest 11 that Spain could put out.
Yeah, I think I don't have any other name. I didn't have any other names to comment there. So
the European 11 is interesting. I'm really curious to get your thoughts on this, because I haven't quite narrowed it down to the exact 11, but I'll tell you the locks. Courtois, Panucci, Pepe, Varane, Coentrao. Midfield, Makaleli, Cruz, Modric.
Works.
Cristiano is a guarantee. That leaves 2 spots for these 3 players: Zidane, Benzema, and Puskás. And I'm curious.
That's brutal.
I just said.
Jesus Christ, that's brutal.
I really want to include Zidane just because I think it would be really fun.
Yeah, like if you looked, of course, only just at like goals and assists, of course you'd put like Puskas and Karim there, but like it
Yeah.
feels wrong to have an 11 like this and not put Zidane in there. So
Well, that's the thing. If we're talking about Real Madrid career, Benzema and Puskas's legacy is bigger than Zidane's as a player.
also true.
Yeah. But also, like, you think back to, like, has there ever been a World Cup final or a European final or a Champions League final where Zidane just wasn't amazing? I guess 98 when he was with Juve. But it just feels like in a big game you want Zidane there, you know?
Yeah. Then you take out, and then if you take out like Makelele, you make the same mistake, the same Galactico mistake, and it's like, no, we're not
Yeah.
gonna take Makelele out for another attacker. Man, that's it. Like the forwards one here is a tough one.
I think in terms, so the context here is, so I think Benzema surpassed Puskás. He has, at least in terms of numbers, he has actually surpassed Puskás. I think you could put Benzema over Puskás in this scenario, and then put Zidane there in terms of balance purposes, because Zidane can take the Isco role in the diamond with Kroos and Modric. Makelele is the Casemiro, and of course Cristiano was there. So here it is. We talked ourselves into this, in my opinion. Courtois, Panucci, Pepe, Varane, Coentrao, Makelele, Kroos, Modric, Zidane, Cristiano, and Benzema. Oh, the other honorable mention, of course, is Bale. I mean, it was actually Bale is in terms of Real Madrid career, Bale would actually be ahead of Zidane.
Yeah, like if we look at it, and that is true. Like if we just look at like the numbers, goals, assists, titles, impact on
I made a mistake. I forgot about it.
Impact on the titles, because Zidane has, of course, the Champions League winning goal, but Bale too. So, ooh.
Bale's track record in big games and overall statistics are
it's
almost unmatched in Real Madrid history. Like, he is up there among the greats. I know people have different feelings about him as but it has nothing to do with his performances. So
I mean, it is kind of incredible that we have an 11 like this, and like we have, I think, a fair like people might kill us in the comments, but I think there are fair arguments to drop Zidane from the 11.
There are. I don't think it's even controversial to not have Zidane in the all-time 11. I don't think it's controversial at all. But and people who will be offended by it have to realize that Zidane's Real Madrid legacy is just not as high as some of the other names we're mentioning. Yeah, and if anyone disagrees, I'm happy to bring you on a video debate and tell you why you're wrong. But the reason why I like to include Zidane is because I just would trust him in a big game. And his track record in big games is, I mean, really, really strong. So those are the names. I mean, someone gets submitted. I think that the 11 we did stumble upon was the one we read at the end, which does include Zidane, Makelele, Kroos, Modric, Cristiano, and Benzema.
Yeah, and if we had to dig like even further back, like it's not like we have like there are other honorable mentions. Like there's Raymond Copa from the older Real Madrid teams, who was also a very historic player. So all in all, yeah, I'm also thinking like we don't remember any other names for the fullbacks, do we? Because it's
the weakest spot.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought about Ferland Mendy. That's how hard it was. Right back was really tough. It gets even tougher when we talk about South America, but Panucci was luckily a really great right back for us, so it was fine.
We can still put Camavinga as left.
This is also true. Well, I'm a Coentrao fanboy, so I'll go with him. That was fantastic.
But yeah, okay, that was a fun one. Now on to the South American 11.
So this one gets weird, and I'm very curious to get your thoughts on this.
It has no center backs. I tried thinking of, there are a few, but
there are a few.
Like it's like Walter Samuel and Heinze or something.
No, I got some better ones for you.
Ooh.
So I think we have to amend this one and include Central America. because we need a goalkeeper and we can fit Keylor Navas that way.
That's what I had to. Yeah.
Okay. And then also we can include Hugo Sanchez that way too, if we want to. The right back situation is very dire with South Americans. We're looking at like Danilo, and I'm not sure who else.
Cicinho.
He's even worse. So I kind of cheated, or I don't know if this would work, but I think it works because we also have a left back problem in that we have two great left backs, Roberto Carlos and Marcelo. So let's put one of them as right back. I'll just put Roberto Carlos as the right back so that we can fit both in. I don't know how it's going to work, but I'll just defer to Roberto Carlos to figure it out.
I like that one.
Center backs, Santa Maria, Uruguay.
Oh, yeah, the Uruguayan Santa Maria, yes.
And then we got Eder Militao.
Works for me.
I have a double pivot. So from here on, I have a 4-2-2-2. Okay, so hear me out. Double pivot of Redondo and Casemiro.
Very expected, yes.
Di Maria and Di Stefano ahead of them.
Ooh.
And then Hugo Sanchez and Ronaldo Nazario up top. I think, but I did think about like current squad players. Two of them, namely, would be Fede Valverde.
Yes.
And Vinicius. Obviously, Di Stefano is a lock. I think Hugo Sanchez can be too if you're including Central America. Ronaldo Nazario's Real Madrid legacy is not that great, but he was definitely good. Something about Ronaldo Nazario is that I think sometimes we undervalue his Real Madrid career just because we think of his peak being at Barca in that 96-97 season and when he was younger before the knee injuries. But he was actually pretty damn good at Real Madrid. I mean, he was
pretty
still
good goal machine. I mean, it was
yeah.
Like it was not like maybe goal a game, but it's like still like I don't know, 4 goals every 5 games or something like it was still quite solid.
I mean, he was carrying us for quite a bit during the decline of the Galacticos offensively. Yeah, it's kind of like, you know, it just felt like he was still so good and so much better than anyone, even though he wasn't at his peak, that it's kind of like, you know, I kind of compare it to this. Like, if I play basketball against my 6-year-old, I'm well past my peak. I'm not the same, but I'm still dunking on him. I felt like Ronaldo Nazario was in that stage of his career. He was still so great, even though he wasn't at his best. So I think you can definitely include him.
Yeah, then I'm thinking like not like I don't like Di Maria for that role, but let's see what other alternatives I have. Let's James, definitely not. Kaká. Still out of Real Madrid feats, I would still go for Di Maria.
If we get position. Milan Kaká, fine, but not the Real Madrid.
Not Real Madrid one. Yeah, I would agree with that. And then competition in the striker position. I mean, the only other one would be like Zamorano and Higuain.
Zamorano's a great shout. Higuain too.
Who I still don't think, like, I would still take Ronaldo and Hugo Sanchez.
Yeah.
Over those two.
Yeah. I was trying to think. You'd think, like, I don't know, like, so, okay, we're putting these 3 teams together. Who wins? I think Europe cleans it out. But Brazil looks interesting. I mean, South America looks interesting.
I would say that the one I have least confidence in is the Spanish one.
Yeah.
They could benefit from like if we had like the Stefano as Spanish, then that would be a different story.
Right.
But I would say that even though there's a lot of quality there, that's probably the one I have least confidence in. But it's still a good fight.
So so Europe and South America in the final. It's Di Stefano versus Cristiano. Wow. I put Europe. But I don't know, man. How are you gonna score on like a Redondo Casemiro double pivot? That's gonna be tough.
I was gonna say South America is quite. I
Lethal on
really
the
like.
counterattack. I feel like South America would play on the counterattack.
It's a more unstructured. This one would be like more like less positional. It would be more like it would be freer, like a more player freedom. Di Maria, Di Stefano moving all around the pitch. Like, it's gonna be a fun one. Like the other one, the European one, is a bit more structured, more control. But
I think I'll go with Europe, but
I like the South American one.
it's South American one is fun. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.